Hello. This is chapter one of Black is the Body by Emily Bernard, and this is my takes on it. So, first, what happens is it talks about Emily Bernard when she was still going to college in Yale. She was in Boston, and she was at this coffee shop called Coffee with a K and a question mark, and I was confused at first because I thought she couldn't remember the name, but then yeah, I'm sorry, that's a little tangent. But yeah, so it starts off with her in there, and she talks about how there was this guy there, and he had kind of followed her there, and she wasn't really sure who he was or what was up with him or anything like that. And then he just starts stabbing people, and she runs out of the coffee shop, and she forgets that her keys and her wallet are still back at the coffee shop, so she goes back to get it, thinking it's okay, but she runs into the man, and he just stabs her, and then it was crazy, and then she has to go to the hospital, and she survived obviously because she lived to write the book and all that. But it was a real tragedy, kind of like the tragedy of lesbians being killed off on mainstream television, but that's something completely different. Uh, Anyways, she later, talks about how she tells this story to other people and to, her husband. And one time she had I think it was called appendix, and it's like adhesions. It was called adhesions because the scar tissue wasn't healing properly due to all the surgeries, and it caused her stomach to have pain, and she had to go to the hospital while her kids were still two. And basically, the whole first chapter is about her story of getting stabbed, and later on living not only with that but with the story itself. So she uses news articles. She uses two in particular from the event of that night and a police report to help tell her story. In the first one, she illustrates it almost as if it's not telling the story the right way. She was like a bloodbath. I don't remember it being a bloodbath. And later on, her friend sends her this little article about that night of the stabbing, about the man who had gone to court and he had apologized and all that. And she was like, "Is this you?" And then she reads it and she's like, "Yeah, that was me." And she uses a police report to better further kind of tell her story on what's happening and all that. And I found this to be really effective storytelling because I feel like what she was trying to convey here is that to a story that you don't know anything about, that you're just being told for the first time or just being just kind of reading it in a newspaper or hearing about it. There's a lot of people who listen to crime podcasts and about serial killers who kill tons of people and all that, right? It feels like she's using these news articles, these police reports, these things like that that just blatantly tell the story, and now we're hearing it from her perspective, and hearing it from her perspective is deeply saddening, and it really crushes you. And hearing that it's not just the stabbing itself that affects her, it's her daily life. She went back to Yale, the area, and she didn't feel safe, and she saw these two people who were about to hug, and she thought something was going to happen. Nothing happened, of course, but it's still that sense of unnerving really leaves her there, and it kind of makes you think. This is her story. Obviously the purpose of this class is storytelling, but this isn't just a story of you would see in the paper about a bunch of people dying. To her, this changed her life. This changed everything about her, and I feel like she really takes the idea of a story and takes it from just it's something that you hear about to it being something people live through. And it really makes me think wow, these stories where you hear about just people dying, this isn't just someone died. This story effectively changed so many lives. And to kind of connect it to what we've been talking about in class, we just talked about the little vertical triangle thing, and she uses that. All right. However, the denouement at the end is leaves our main character completely different than how we first found her and how we first are introduced to her. And I feel like she purposely kind of did this little triangle thing to illustrate that while this is a story, it's not just a story. It's her story, and the story is something that has completely changed her and something that has rocked her to the core, and she will never truly recover from it. And I truly believe, like, on a larger scale, it really needs to make us think, like, these stories we hear, they're not just something to hear about, something to pass the time. Like, these are things, this is like real life, this is the real world. These aren't just like make believe stories we tell each other, these are stories about the real world. And I think she did a fantastic job at illustrating that in this first chapter.